Hey everyone, my name is Kate Curtin, and for my media reflection project, I decided to read a book. It's a memoir called The Outrun. It's by Amy Liptrot, and it was also turned into a film in 2024, starring Saoirse Ronan. So today I'll be exploring how Liptrot's story it does such a beautiful job of reflecting how complex addiction and recovery are, and how important the role of place is in healing. Um, I'm also going to discuss the biopsychosocial model, recovery capital, and spirituality and its role in recovery. Um, so Liptrop grew up in the Orkney Islands in Scotland. There's a little map here to show you just how far north it is. It's right at the top of Scotland. Um, so she grew up there and she moved to London in her 20s. And her memoir discusses her struggle with alcohol misuse in London, and then discusses her return to the islands as she's trying to rebuild her life in recovery. Um, the 2024 film adaptation, it brings her story to a wider audience, but a lot of the themes are the same. They do a really good job of really respecting the book. Um, so the Outrun does a really great job of providing an example of the biopsychosocial model at work, recovery capital, and the integration of spirituality into recovery. And it really shows how addiction and healing are influenced by um, all of these factors and how environment plays a huge role, at least for her, in her recovery. Um, so Amy's childhood on the Orkney Islands was marked by both beauty and difficulty. Her father lived with bipolar disorder, and she witnessed his really intense manic and depressive episodes. And her mother often took on the role of caretaker for everyone in the family. Um, One memory that really stands out in her memoir is when she was 11, her father smashed every window in their farmhouse during a manic episode. She describes the house just being really cold and the wind rushing through the house, and her father wouldn't stop until the physician on the island arrived and had to sedate him. And she goes on to describe that these experiences of her father's episodes shaped her resilience, but also um, contributed her to her feeling of like wanting to escape and leave the island. So in early adulthood, Amy moved to London, just looking for something different, looking for excitement and fun. And there she became really involved in the nightlife scene. And I think pretty quickly her drinking escalated into serious alcohol misuse. And the instability of that lifestyle, coupled with her unresolved childhood trauma, um, impacted her mental health. And she describes a lot of dangerous situations and just feeling out of control. Um, and she describes trying to get sober many times and had many relapses, with each one reinforcing just how hard recovery can be without a major shift um, in environment and support. So she completed a 90-day treatment program in London and decided to return home to Scotland, to the Orkney Islands, where she immersed herself in the natural environment, which she says became a core part of her recovery. She got a job looking for endangered birds over the islands, and working for like an organization that tries to preserve bird populations. She started cold plunging, and she started to pay particular attention to the wind and the weather on the island, and describes becoming really connected to place, which helped her to find stability and purpose and a sense of belonging that supported her sobriety. Um, so the biopsychosocial model helps us to understand recovery as the interplay of multiple factors, right? Biological, psychological, and social, all of which were present in her story. Um, Biologically, she experienced physical dependence that comes from years of heavy drinking, along with that possible genetic vulnerability to mood disorders given her family's history. Psychologically, her trauma history, depression, and anxiety played a role. In London, alcohol became her primary coping mechanism, and it created a cycle of numbing her emotions and then losing control, then experiencing shame, which just in turn fueled more drinking. Socially, her life in London was centered around the nightlife. She experienced unstable housing and high risk relationships, and her heavy alcohol use just became normalized. And when she returned to Orkney, her environment completely shifted. She reconnected with a smaller community, had fewer overt triggers, and she developed healthier routines. Um, it really felt like reading this book. It showed how this model played a huge role in shifting her habits, and it addressed all of the dimensions of the biopsychosocial model. And she created a stronger, more sustainable foundation that contributed to lasting change. Um, Recovery capital refers to internal and external resources that help to sustain recovery. Um, for um, for her, it felt like her internal recovery capital included resilience, a growing self-awareness, and practical coping skills that she developed over time. And she replaced alcohol with activities that were more restorative, like swimming or cold plunging, taking long walks, writing, observing the natural world. And um, these things really help to manage stress and to regulate emotions. Her external recovery capital expanded when she returned to the islands as well. They offered safe, stable housing um, that actually came with her job, a much slower pace of life, and kind of like non-existent high risk situations. Everything was very rural and very slow there. Um, and the natural environment, she just describes like not as a backdrop, but it was like an active part of helping to support her recovery and providing structure and a sense of connection to something bigger than her. Um, so it was almost like unconventional resources, like a connection to place and nature, were just as powerful as therapy or like a formal treatment program for her. Spirituality and meaning making. The book describes her recovery as really spiritual, but not religious. In the biopsychosocial spiritual model, spirituality is about finding meaning, connection, and purpose. And the book just describes that as coming through as a relationship with the natural world. Um, Living on the Orkney Islands gave perspective and a renewed sense of belonging. Um, Being on an island and surrounded by ocean and the island wind and the rhythms of nature helped to ground her and offered healing that was really impactful for her. And she also received community support that was felt like very spiritual for her. Um, and her recovery turned into more of an existential journey that was centered on acceptance and belonging and transformation. And when she reflected on her past, she was able to make peace with and step more fully into the present. And it felt like there was a big shift on the island, from feeling really lost to feeling connected. And it became a protective factor against relapse. Um, and it felt like nature became a core part of how she sustained her long-term recovery. Um, so the outrun really showed that recovery is not a straight line. Um, Something that I've really taken away from this class is that relapse is a part of recovery. And in my own relationships with people in recovery, I've known that, but it wasn't explicitly stated. And I think that's really important to note. Um, Amy's journey makes it clear that healing takes many different approaches. The biological, psychological, and social pieces all matter, but additionally, the spiritual part is really impactful as well in recovery. Her story also talks about the importance of recovery capital, like her inner strengths, like resilience and self-awareness, but also needing external support, like a safe environment and community. And having that stability of the island gave her grounding that she needed to keep moving forward in sobriety. And then there's the connection to nature, which became a huge source of meaning and strength and um, created a sense of spirituality. And that can be a really protective factor in recovery. And this is just a reminder that healing isn't just about clinical interventions, it's also about helping people find their place and their purpose and a sense of belonging. Um, so I would really recommend this book. It's beautifully written and gives a really lovely perspective on a person in recovery. All right, thanks so much.